You're in the mood to paint something really sweet and fun, and so am I. So I selected this white bicycle to get us in the summer spirit, and I used masking fluid to retain the whites. Let's get going. So let's set the stage. I've done my usual swatching to match the reference photo shown up here on the top right. I use Daniel Smith masking fluid. You can use whatever you have. Just mask off the areas on your sketch that you want to preserve, and don't forget to use a brush that you don't really care about, since the fluid does ruin it. So let's start by adding in some sky, and just keep your edges soft, so move the water around and create an uneven wash here so that you get the feeling of some clouds. And I like to drop in a little bit of the blue so it spreads, and do the same for the foliage here at the horizon line. And you gotta love the way that bursts into the wet on wet, which is so fun. And then move your way across and just create that other hedgy kind of foliage that we see in the background. And just vary your greens and keep everything moving. You can leave some spots of white, that's fine. It'll just look like light is hitting, but just keep varying those tones, or not tones, the hues, and let the blend do the mixing. And we've masked off our white flowers here, but you want to make sure to capture some of the variation in the green behind the white flowers. And there's really no going wrong here. You just look at the reference photo, see where the darks and lights are. Now I've changed to a brush that holds a little more water, and I'm using that very light green gold in this case, and just creating, again, an uneven wash, because we know that there are variations in the color, and we can drop in some of those darker greens as we go, but we don't want it to look super smooth because we know it's a grassy field. So as you can see, I'm just going in with the same color, just getting a little heavier in some spots. And the beauty of the mask is I don't need to worry about that, and I really don't need to worry about the tires because they're going to be darker than this background. So just get that green field laid in there. And I am trying to stay out of the way of that basket because I'm going to go in with flowers, but I want this background to, again, be uneven. So I dropped in just plain water, and that'll create some blooms. And then I'm trying to imply that there's grass here. So I'm adding some shadows at the bottom that I can pull up to create the grassy feel, because we know it's going to intersect with the bike in certain locations. So you can see me doing that here, and I keep looking at the reference photo so that I can stay somewhat true to the lighting. And so you'll see I'm just picking out some spots that I see, and I'm going to do the same for the area behind the flowers. We really don't know what we're going to get once we remove this mask. Sometimes it's a little too harsh. So we'll just deal with that at the time. And now, just being very loose, leaving some white spots, I'm putting in the flowers in the basket. And I did change the coloration a bit to work with the paints I have in my palette and what I thought would look good with my mixtures. So I went with a little more purple, a little less pink. But what I'm doing here is I'm blending in the colors that come next. So I use lavender, but then I'm dumping in some of the rose of ultramarine, and then that was what I used in place of the pink. And so now for the next color, it's a mixture of that rose of ultramarine and the yellow that I use. That way we get that nice harmony within the basket. And we're really not trying to show any specific type of flower, but I do want these to be a little bit different in texture, so maybe they look a little larger in size. stay really loose, and you can see I'm being very gestural for those stems, and that's going to give it a very dynamic feel. And again, you know, it's kind of potluck. We don't know what we're going to get when we remove that mask for the basket. So you can kind of assume it's going to look like the reference photo, but we'll just deal with, again, what we get left over. But I am trying to go in with darker darks kind of as I go here, and then I'll know when I remove the mask what I'm left with. So fill in any areas with green. And for the bell, I masked it off, so I'm just putting in kind of a blob and lifting off a little bit of that highlight. But again, we'll know what we get at the end. So now I'm not using black, I'm using a Payne's gray here, keeping everything super soft and just getting those blended areas. But I am going in with some sharp marks here to show the springs on the bike and some of the mechanism. And people know what a bike looks like, so we don't have to be perfect and worry about all those details. We're just trying to show there's a change in texture and color. And again, most of this area is masked off, so I'm just interrupting it, going across it, and not worrying about it. And then I want the wheels to have some texture. So I'm going in kind of bumpy here, and I'm trying to get some of the traction that's shown. And I can layer over the top of it just for some more depth. And then I'm just doing some hints of the gray next to the areas of white so that when I remove the mask, I'm not starting from scratch. I can kind of blend that area in. And the same thing with the handle, trying to give things dimension and contour. And then just imply some of the shading next to the white bike. And just be loose. We're really not trying to create a realistic, I mean, we want it to be realistic, but it doesn't have to be photo accurate. We like things to be painterly and loose, so I'm trying to hold my brush back at the end. Here I'm stealing some of the green to start to suggest the grasses. And we can add more of that grass later. I'm just checking my reference photo. Where do I need more shading? What needs to be a little darker? And then that gives me a good base to start. So then when I put details on the grass, it makes sense. So here we go with the grasses. And again, you can feel confident going over that masked area. And I'm just looking at that photo, adding some blobs of green, adding grasses loosely. And I'm not trying to draw every single blade of grass. It's just a few up in the front to show that that's what that mass of color is. And the area here with the florals, sorry, every time I paint up here, we go into autofocus and it gets blurry, so I'm skipping ahead a little bit. But all I really did was went in with variation of greens to try to give it nice dimension. I wanted my basket to pop a little more, so I'm using our trick of trying to make something darker that's behind to make the front pop off. But again, it's kind of a crapshoot. What are we going to get when we remove the mask? So let's see. So here I'm going to remove all of the mask, and I'm not going to make you sit through that. So I'll show you my technique. I just use a masking pickup, and here we go. So as you can see, there's very harsh lines, high contrast. So I'm trying to add a little bit of shading for some dimension without losing all of those highlights. So I'm just trying to be loose, but it's not stark white, it's gray. And I also masked off both the tire area, which isn't white, it's actually silver. So I'll try to reconcile that by leaving some areas white, and then here, as you can see, these areas are silver, so I'm adding a little more gray to those areas. And I'm not loving the way the basket came out. My brush was a little bit thicker than I wanted, but I decide I'm okay with it, that I'm not going to try to fix it. I think I would just do more damage. So when you paint, you may want to make sure you use a masking pen or go in with a really fine line, and then you'll get those nice wiry marks. But for me, I'm okay with how it came out. So again, I'm just doing that last glance around, and I noticed that the flowers, the white flowers up at the top left, they look a little blobby. So I'm going to go ahead and go back in with them after I add just a few sharper details to the black. I had mentioned wanting to get some of that texture. So by using that same Payne's gray, wet on dry, you can see it does give it a little more texture, which I'm very happy with. So this is the area now with the flowers. I'm just adding a little bit of green just to marry them to the background so they look a little more natural. And I'll do the same to the flower basket here, just add a little more dimension. But that's it. I'm going to remove the masking tape for the edges, and you can see those sharp, crisp lines. So this really got me in the mood for summer. I hope it did you as well. Thanks for watching.